måtte dem her ete Leland Palmer.
Baka Shinji.
Hyggelig å måtte dem ete Baka Shinji. No, actually, in real life, hello, hi everyone. Hyggelig å måtte dem ete Craig and ete Twin Peaks Evangelion. We look at Twin Peaks and Evangelion. I'm joined by Vinny. Hello, Vinny. Kia ora.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Oh, muy bien, muy bien. We're talking about the missing pieces today.
Yes, the much anticipated missing pieces, this entire narrative that will solve every single question that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and lots of people, we know lots of people are, all 7 people who listen to this podcast have been hotly anticipating this one. So, yeah, I'm keen to get into it. Now, I feel like we should be upfront. Vinny, if I were to say to you that this is the first time that we've spoken on pod about this particular topic and recorded an episode on this particular topic, would that be an accurate statement?
In the eyes of the U.S. government, yes. In real world, no.
No, we had a bit of a situation. I don't know how many of our listeners enjoy this, but I personally love it when podcasters kind of give a little peek behind the curtain into the production of their work. So I'm going to just share a little something here. We recorded the last episode that you would have heard, our really dumb voice acting analysis episode. We recorded that on the same day that we recorded our initial conversation about the missing pieces. When we had finished recording the missing pieces, Vinny and I were just chatting about some bullshit, and I accidentally clicked the little X in the corner of my Audacity window that closes the window, and then, because I wasn't thinking, when the little thing came up that said, "Do you want to save this file?" I just automatically clicked no, and lost over an hour's worth of content. Yeah, we tried to salvage it, but it was just gone. So, yeah, like tears in a pool of LCL. It was gone. So here we are, and you know what? Maybe this was a blessing in disguise. Maybe we'll get a better conversation out of this, having done it once before. Time will tell.
Time will only tell.
Yeah, so we're covering Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces today, which were a collection of long-lost scenes, extended scenes or deleted scenes that were taken out of the final edit of Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. These were sought after by fans for many, many years, and finally saw the light of day in 2014, so a full 22 years after,
yeah, 22.
after the release of the film. Strange. These were actually, I don't know if you know this, Vinny, but these scenes were actually came out and were premiered just before the announcement of season 3.
That's great.
These were premiered. They were originally released on the Twin Peaks: The Entire Mystery Blu-ray set, and they were premiered in LA on July 16th, 2014. And I think the announcement about season 3 came out in like August or September of that year. It was interesting. Lynch gave a very cryptic speech at the premiere. He he didn't say anything about the scenes or about Twin Peaks in general. He basically just talked about wood for about 30 seconds. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I'll see if I can find it, and I'll drop it in here if I can find that little clip.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. There is an abundance of fish in the sea, but tonight I would like to speak about wood. There are many times in the world when the phone rings and someone is inquiring about wood. This happens primarily at lumber yards, and in this case, it is necessary to have a phone. It is only natural that trees are growing and that they are made of wood. Much happiness can come from observing a tree, and the same can be said about observing the many shapes fashioned out of wood. Quite often, when we are talking about beauty, we are talking about wood. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was very funny. They're really interesting to sort of look at in isolation of the film. You can kind of see where some of them would have slotted into the film, but some are just, they would have seemed quite jarring if they were in the film. So maybe I thought, Vinny, we could just sort of breeze through these and just say a little something about each one. And yeah, if you got any comments on any of these, we could just sort of chat about that. How's that sound?
Sounds amazing, Craig. Let's do it.
Very cool. So, you watched these on the Criterion Blu-ray, is that right?
Yes. Under special features, it's trailers, and then it's this, and it's like, this should have been the first thing in the special features menu, not just the trailers for the movie. Like, hey, here's everything for an extended cut of the movie, but now let's put it after the US trailer too.
Well, you gotta ease into these things. You don't just want to jump in there feet first. Sometimes, I watched these on a little website called YouTube.com, and thank you to the user who uploaded all these into a nice little playlist. It was very good because I don't have access to the box set or anything, which has these, so it was nice to be able to watch them. The first thing that really struck me, and I don't know if this was on the official thing or if it was just something that was made for YouTube, but there was a little intro clip where it's just like a slow pan into the trophy.
Yeah, the trophy case and her picture, right? Yeah, it's on there.
It's a different picture of Laura.
Yeah,
than we've seen before. It was a slightly different pose, slightly different. It's not the iconic one that we recognize from all the merchandise and everything.
But also, it's not the one that Sarah smashes in The Return when she's angry.
No. So it's like a slight variation. So whatever. I think I heard somewhere that when they took that photo, it was they got Cheryl Lee dressed up in a prom dress, and I think they shot it. If I'm remembering this right, they shot it at like in a room in the set for the sheriff's station,
mm-hmm.
and they just took a bunch of photos. So there's all these sort of there's a few different variations. So it's just, I don't know if there's anything to make out of that, but
maybe it's a comment on this is the story another way. This is a branching path in the timeline.
Yeah, it could be. It could well be. But yeah, I just thought that was a little interesting nuance that I hadn't sort of seen before. And I mean the intro clip's only about 10 seconds long, so it doesn't really matter. But so we got a chunk of deleted scenes, chunk of missing pieces that are based in Deer Meadow. And they're all around kind of Chet Desmond and his investigation of Teresa Banks' murder. A lot of these are kind of whatever. A lot of them are just kind of extended versions of what we end up seeing in the film. There's a couple of extended scenes where they're in Hap's Diner, including one where they leave the next morning when the sun comes up. And Irene's just giving them a dirty look. But I mean, I think the first sort of big thing that we see in the Deer Meadow section is the fight between Chet Desmond and old Steelbender himself, Sheriff Cable. Now, what did you think of this scene, Vinny?
It's an amazing fight, and I do think that the only way Lynch topped this fight was in The Return, just have a floating ball filled with Bob was the only way he could top this fight from this.
Strange scene, this one. It's really drawn out. Like, it is so long. It just
But
goes for so
that's what
long.
makes it feel real. Like, real fights are awkward. Like, there's weird pacing. It's not choreographed, you know? It's just this guys just trying to out-macho each other until one gets the victory.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah, if you do... I don't know. Have you ever been in a big fight, Vinny? Have you ever
No,
had to lay hands on anyone? No.
not
Neither have I, actually.
recently. Maybe elementary school, but even then it was like, within 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, I've never really been in a proper fight either. But yeah, just I don't know. But I imagine it would be kind of bumbling and awkward, and it's not like an action movie. So I guess it is kind of authentic in that regard, I guess. The other sheriff and the receptionist lady is, sort of cheering on Sheriff Cable, and calls FBI agent a little monkey or something like that. It's weird.
So weird.
What do you reckon the penalty or the repercussions of getting into a fist fight with a federal agent would be?
Oh, we have lose your badge, lose your identity, be thrown in the gulag, and then we just erase you, and then take away your autonomy for your own body.
Fuck, man, imagine that happening. Weird.
I know. Who could imagine? Only in a fictional universe of Twin Peaks could that ever happen.
Fuck the Supreme Court.
Anyway, Richard Taylor's autograph.
There's a weird segue. Do we have anything else to say about the fight?
I just like how supportive Sam is. He just standing there just smiling because he knows Chet is going to win this. He's just like calmly holding the coat like, yes, come on, just beat him already.
Yeah, you can tell he's kind of suppressing the urge to sort of be like, yeah, get him. Like, it's cheesy, but I do like the little touch afterwards where Desmond kind of like just picks up a steel thing and just bends it like it's nothing. After Cable's made this huge deal of like, really struggling to bend it. It's cheesy little thing,
so
but
cheesy.
but I do quite like it. Yeah.
It's very. Then we cut from this to just straight to FBI agent Daryl Cooper doing lunges.
Yes. Okay, so what did you think of this scene? So this is the scene where he's talking to presumably an empty room that we're led to believe has Diane in it. What did you think of this?
I loved it because it was very much that giddy Cooper that you got at the beginning of the show, and since this takes place right before that, then it makes sense. But it also is like it just shows how good Kyle is, because yes, he's acting against an empty room because he's like, Diane, you changed somebody's room. Don't tell me. I got it, because it feels like a genuine conversation is happening, but we all know there's nothing in that room.
Yeah, it's probably like a step ladder and a can of paint or something. It's an interesting scene, and it sort of implies a few things about their relationship. That they do have kind of this almost flirty relationship, which I think we are led to believe in the return that there was a bit of some quasi-romantic feelings back in the day between the two. Which
is problematic in the workplace.
Yeah, especially sort of if we're led to believe that she's kind of his assistant or his subordinate in some way. But yeah, they have these little games that they play, presumably. They sort of, she'll change something in the room and he has to guess what it is. And if he guesses it, then she has to make the coffee or something like that, which is like a cute little workplace moment. You could imagine that kind of stuff happening with in a workplace.
It is just such a contrast from, the real movie where you just get Cooper seriously looking into a security camera, just waiting for something bad to happen.
And this is interesting, because I think you're right. When you said that there was sort of the giddy Cooper that, you see in the early season, yeah, it's almost like he became more serious and I don't know if that's true. I was going to say, like, Twin Peaks changed him, or, the going to Twin Peaks initially sort of did change him a little bit. And he became more serious, but then I don't know if that's entirely true. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably cut all this out.
Richard Taylor's autograph.
That's your cue. That's our cue to cut shit.
Yes. Because it adds no value.
Whoo! Sick burn. Sam Stanley. He's got value, I guess. Okay, now have you ever been to an apartment like Sam Stanley's apartment?
That's like a death trap? I guess, yeah. Just shit everywhere. And it's like, don't touch it because I know where everything is. I know it's a mess, but I know where everything is.
Just the geography of that room, though. I mean, if this scene wasn't labeled Stanley's apartment, you wouldn't know from looking at the actual room that it's supposed to be an apartment. It looks like an industrial warehouse.
Yeah.
Space.
Like, I would have thought this was like the basement of like the FBI. Like, hey, here's an off lab in the dark that we just send him to.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, you just shove him down there to do his weird inventions and stuff. Why does he have an enormous vat of semen with a little whisk? What's going on with that?
Joke's on you. That's how Terminal Dogma started with Gendo. He just had a bottle of orange juice and a tub, and then and on this rock I will build my church.
Gross. Another thing about Sam Stanley that I sort of picked up on this time, he keeps saying Desmond has his own MO, which is, obviously that's what Cole said to him, during the famous Lil scene and that. But I love how he just keeps saying it. And I think he says it to Desmond as well. Like, he's like, you've got your own MO, don't you, Agent Desmond? It's funny the way he keeps repeating it. It's almost like a kid who's just learned a joke and then is like telling everybody the joke, or just says it multiple times in a row until all the humor's been sucked out of it. It's it just reminded me of that.
It also makes me wonder, like, if he did show up in the return, would he still be like this giddiness, or would he be like this worn down, like sick of it all? I wonder how he would have approached it.
I think from memory that there is a reference to Stanley in, I think, Mark Frost's book, which implied that he had left the bureau and had some trouble with alcoholism. But I think that's about the only sort of reference we've had post this movie to Sam Stanley.
Messed him up, and then he had to go deal with his own phantom pain.
Maybe. Oh, actually, no, I do know what happened. Yeah, no, he got transferred to another government department, Homeland Security, and he spent several days, several really intense days, chasing down terrorists and torturing people and looking at clocks, counting down, trying to rescue his daughter who got kidnapped. I know, I need to watch the first couple of seasons of that, so I don't know.
And I need to replay Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh yeah, he was a vampire as well.
Oh yeah! Only in the first one, right? He wasn't in any of the sequels?
I don't know. Man, apologies to any listeners that we've just lost. We're not going to explain any of this.
Nope. If you're in, you'll love the joke. If you're not, I'm sorry.
Speaking of things that are barely explained, there's a lot happening in Argentina.
Yeah!
Have you ever been to Argentina, Vinny?
No, I wish I have. It looks fun.
Yeah, no, it's a nice place.
I wouldn't be constipated, just the shit comes out my ass, and there goes my day.
We'll definitely talk about that. I have been to Buenos Aires, and it is a nice place. I didn't stay anywhere that was this nice, though, as the Palm Deluxe. I didn't stay in a hotel that had a harpist, a suit of armor, and a couple of dancers doing a waltz or something, with being followed by live guitarists across the lobby. That was unusual.
So weird. Yet, yes, it's so nice that it has everything but the ice machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is where we first see the famous Philip Jeffries, who comes in. He asks the clerk, who identifies him. He says, Mr. Jeffries, before he introduces himself. And Jeffries asks if Miss Judy is staying here. Now, what do you think of this? Do you think that, A, the phrase, is there a Miss Judy staying here, is code, like an FBI code for, give me the message that you've got in that envelope? Or do you think that there is a person called Miss Judy who left that envelope for Jeffries?
I think there is a woman for Judy, a woman named Judy who left that, because I think the way Judy is used in the return, it feels like, because that's set so much after this, I think at that point it would have been like another FBI person like using Judy as code. Oh, you need this message. Where I think this is just him just starting like the true trail of Judy, and that the only way that he would know that this is Judy, because it was from a Judy. So I think this is mainly the start of the chase for Judy, where in the return I think it would be the former option that you proposed.
Sure. When they were filming all of this stuff, they were, I guess, gearing up to set up a bunch of stuff that would have come out in subsequent films. I think the deal that they'd made with the production studio was that, if this film does well, we'll greenlight another couple of Twin Peaks films, which will continue on the story. So I think they were setting stuff up for those subsequent films, and I think probably a lot of the Philip Jeffries stuff, which feels kind of, even in the film itself, feels quite jarring from the rest of the narrative, especially Laura's story, is probably a lot of setup for stuff that might have happened in those other films. Obviously, this film didn't do so well, and those plans were scrapped.
From a scathing review of Quentin Tarantino, fuck off.
Yeah, so I think it's probably just important to note that anything that did happen in the return was probably either repurposed from this, but probably wasn't entirely conceived of. In the same way, in the way that we eventually saw it in the return, perhaps. But who knows?
I don't think David Lynch even knows.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, if anyone could tell us, it'd be David Lynch, but, just because he could tell us doesn't mean that he would. I'm confident that he wouldn't.
And I need you to be in a bright, vibrant suit in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Why? 'Cause.
So that's a fairly short scene. He just sort of walks out of there, but then we get kind of an extended version of the meeting above the convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
This scene is quite a bit longer than what we saw in the film. There's more lines from the man from another place and others. There's more sort of animalistic screeching from the jumping man, which is very unsettling. And Bob has a line in this where he says he has the fury of his own momentum.
Yeah.
Now, if we were more prepared and if we, had another 3 or 4 hours, we could probably do a shot-by-shot, line-by-line analysis of this entire scene, and that might be quite interesting. I don't have the mental capacity to to do that right now. Suffice to say, this is a very unsettling and disturbing and creepy scene, and very powerful. But just a couple of things I wanted to just sort of pick out of all of this, Vinny, and I wanted to sort of, and if you've got thoughts on any of this, I'd love to hear them too. But there's a theory that I quite like around the Formica table. The little man draws attention to the Formica table, and he mentions that this is a Formica table and green is its color. And then soon afterwards, he talks about the ring. With this ring ivy weird. Eagle-eyed folks on the internet have pointed out that when he's doing his little rubbing the Formica table, there's what looks like a small hole cut out of the green tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory goes that the ring, the green alcove ring, might have been made from that Formica tabletop.
Ooh.
Which I don't know quite what to make of that, but it's intriguing.
Maybe it could mean that table originated from the Red Room, and they brought it over, but because it had so much of connection to that place, that's why it could either teleport you or protect you from someone that comes from that place.
It's interesting too, because I mean, the space itself is really weird. Like, we'd led to believe that it's above a convenience store.
And when we see that convenience store in the return, it's like, no, that room is not up there.
Yeah, and that, I mean, in the return, the convenience store itself is a transient space that we see sort of, shift around and move from place to place, and flicker in and out of existence even. We also see that eventually the little man leads Bob through the red curtains, so it feels like this space might be like an offshoot of the Red Room. Like it might be, a similarly kind of interdimensional space, and I don't know, it's really hard to tell. But one other thing that I noticed in this sort of series of scenes, and I don't think this is in the film, towards the end of this sequence, there's the shot of the Red Room curtains, and Laura's face is kind of overlaid over it.
Right, that wasn't in the movie.
And I think it's the same shot that we see later in the film when she's under the ceiling fan.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so what do we make of that? Like, is Laura getting a view of this space? Or is this sort of trying to channel
in the movie, it's just the light and the ceiling fan. You don't see what she's seeing, so maybe this is to explain what she is seeing, or maybe this was just a different cut of this was what the original cut was, but he just kind of edited it into, let's just splice this over the original Jeffries scene of him explaining about about being at one of their meetings, and then it makes sense to show what he saw in that meeting.
Yeah.
I will say it is shot more in the vein of The Return, because it's just this long creepiness, just staying on the creepiness, staying on the man making the noise, staying on these two evil guys talking about their evil plan, where you didn't really get that in the original series, and and only lingering shots we got in the actual movie was just, Laura just looking at the other side. We didn't really get to see just the creepiness linger that wasn't attached to Laura directly. For those of you at home, Craig is now dancing like the crazy little man and just staring blankly at me. And I will let the fear wash over me.
I'm just thinking. Just thinking. Anyway, this is all interesting stuff. Did you have any other thoughts about about this sequence?
Just the me just having a better look at the room versus the staticky jumping back and forth between Philip Jeffries' static and seeing the room. It's just how set up it is, because you have that man who I assume will be eventually covered in oil just sitting there and hitting the TV that he is still working on later in The Return. He still hasn't really fixed it, but also just being a presence of just the evil, and maybe, who knows, maybe him working on the TV is a metaphor for him gaining power, because in The Return we just see him crushing skulls and grabbing people and all that, where in this he's more of just an onlooker of all the evilness at this point.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, those characters are really interesting, and there's the black guy that says animal life. I don't know what the hell that means. I have no idea. I feel like we could talk about this for hours if we
absolutely
if we don't crack on. The next scene that we have is an extended version of the Philip Jeffries in Philadelphia scene. So in the finished film, these two sequences, so the meeting above the convenience store and Philip Jeffries in Philadelphia, they're kind of intercut. He'll explain something and then you'll see it, and it sort of jumps back and forth between those two. It's interesting to sort of see them as two separate pieces. Yeah. Let me ask you, do you if it was in the film like that, if there wasn't the cutting between the two and we had two separate scenes in the film, do you think it would play better to have the convenience store stuff first with no context, or the Philip Jeffries stuff explaining it all first and then seeing it?
I think it would be more effective for the convenience store stuff first, just to set the creepiness, because honestly, just seeing Bowie going big and crazy in isolation, it kind of, respectfully, Mr. Bowie, with the accent choice, it doesn't really help the performance by itself.
Sure.
I think the performance was enhanced with the intercutting of the scene, but if we had to live in a world where we had to have these two scenes separated, I think it would have been better to have the creepiness of the convenience store first, and then have Mr. Bowie's big hammy performance after.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just a couple of extra little pieces that that we get from Bowie, though, is that there seems to be, it's more heavily implied that he doesn't know when he is, because there's that whole confusion about, he sees the calendar and it's like 1989, what?
Yeah.
And he's, real confused about that. So there's some timey-wimey shit going on. I love the line from Cole where he's trying to get someone on the phone. He's like, "What? Am I alone here?" And then he turns around, Bowie's gone. He's like, and then we get a creepy uvula close up. Now,
Disgusting.
I wanted to ask you, whose mouth do you think we're in here?
I thought it was Mike's.
You thought it was mine? I wondered if it might have been Bob's. Because I was watching it again last night. I was going, yeah. I mean, just when it cuts out, like it doesn't linger on it for long, but when the camera's kind of finally out of his throat, you kind of see a little bit of his mouth and face, and I thought it might have looked like Bob's. And again, I don't know what to make of that, or if it's important, but yeah.
The only reason I thought it was Mike, because we have gotten like zoom-ins of him going electricity, and it like zoom-ins on him, but also I'm not looking at that thing for details. I just see it, I'm like, ugh, I'm trying to look away.
It's really gross. It's really gross. I don't like it. Anyway, let's move on from that then. And then we get our first scene in Twin Peaks proper. This is Mike and Bobby talking about the big score and stuff. And I can understand why this was cut.
Yeah. Because
I think it would feel weird to have this being, I guess, the first thing that we see in Twin Peaks. I think that'd be strange.
Like, it's the second worst choice. The worst choice would be just to cut to and like, no, that'd be worse.
Hey, you're not a fan of that song, eh?
No.
Are you a fan of the Norwegian language?
It's weird and beautiful at the same time, so sure.
Are you a fan of Leland's entrance into the... Oh, no, hang on. Before we get to that, there's a short scene, I think, where... Yeah, so there's a really short scene where Laura comes home. She runs out again. I think this is where she, runs off to see Harold about the missing diary pages in the film. Because we sort of end that scene in the dining room, and then it immediately cuts to the lights, the chandeliers.
Yeah.
Moving as Leland's stomping in the beginning of the next scene. And it's really funny because in the first scene, there's just like, the regular furniture in the room. But then as Leland's coming in, there's that huge slab of wood on the cabinet, which eventually Leland turns around after he does his whole stomp, where's my axe thing. He sort of turns that thing around, and there's an axe mounted onto that piece of wood, which leads me to ask: did Leland bring that home with him? And why?
Is Leland like as his side hobby? Is he a prop comic? Did he like see Carrot Top like, ooh, props? I gotta set stuff around the house to do my dad jokes.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, and I gotta turn it around so it's not immediately obvious where the axe is.
And hopefully neither of them turn around beforehand, or else the joke is ruined.
It's just a strange thing. Like, it's really funny. It just because of the way the two scenes are cut, it just looks like it just transitions from one to the
right
to the other. It's just apparated there for some reason. What did you think of this scene overall? So they sit down, and this is probably the most fun we've ever seen the Palmers having. Like, this is probably the happiest we've ever seen those three characters.
It's the most believable that they've ever been as a family.
Yeah, it was nice.
But also, like, it made me also think of how in the series, that scene with the horns and Jerry bringing back, like, bread from France, and how that's what the scene was. Like, it's just this very domestic scene of a family, and then here's someone coming in, and then the whole discussion about this one object.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they sort of do this little sing-song introduction in Norwegian, and it just, I don't know, I feel like that family doesn't have many of those moments where they're all just sort of happy and laughing with each other, because they are hysterical. Like, they are laughing so hard at this nonsense. Sarah especially is just absolutely guffawing at all this.
But also it shows like the downfall of Sarah, because, you know, here she was having this nice moment with her family, then years later it's her drinking an absurd amount of alcohol, smoking a bunch of cigarettes, watching animals kill each other. Like, how hard has she fallen since what was her happy family at one point to just being this just sponge of evil?
Kind of see a hint of that later, because there's another deleted scene later on where Laura's kind of pushing the asparagus around on her plate and sort of says, I'm going to go do my homework at Bobby's house. You can see Sarah kind of like is on the verge of a breakdown. She sort of pulls out a cigarette and, you know, glugs back her wine kind of thing. So it's just an interesting kind of contrast there. Speaking of things that have really gone downhill, let's transition into a scene where we talk about the production of timber in America. Now, Vinny, I don't ask you for much, but I need a 2x4. What? Tell us about this scene. Did you enjoy it?
I loved this scene. I love this scene so much because, first off, it has Pete, which is always going to be a good thing, but also just, you could have asked me, okay, in this Missing Pieces, guess which characters return. I never would have thought that bank teller would have returned, and it's all better for it because he is one of the best characters in this entire franchise. He just brings so much joy to me whenever he's just allowed to be kooky and silly and old.
No, it's very good scene.
And maybe it's the most I've ever liked Josie, because honestly, she's kind of annoying most of the time, and it's just her.
She is.
She runs a mill, and she has no idea what 2x4s are.
I think the interesting thing about this is that she seems really concerned about whether this will see the inside of a courtroom, which, you know, someone with a checkered past like she has and all these sort of nefarious shit going on underneath, that's the last thing that she wants, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I really like this scene, but I'm kind of glad it's not in the film, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it would have been really jarring to have this little moment in amongst everything else.
But also no Catherine, so that's another plus for this scene.
If you were given the job of reinserting this scene into the film, where would you put it?
I would make this the first thing you see in Twin Peaks after the shot of the sign. Almost like a harkening back to the opening, because the opening is all about the mill. You know, you get the beautiful song over shots of the mill running, so it could be like it is the opening, but it's actually acted out.
Okay. That might work. So it would be all the Deer Meadow stuff. It would be the convenience store meeting stuff in Philadelphia. It would be Dale going to look for Desmond and then saying to his dictaphone, you know, like the song says, who knows where or when. Then hard cut to 1 year later, Twin Peaks sign. Cut to the mill. I need a 2x4.
Yes, cinema. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I guess there's no place for this really in the film.
No.
I don't think. If you had to crowbar it in there somewhere, maybe there.
Make it the post-credit scene.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you'd have to do something like that. You'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Either that or put it or put it directly in the middle of the convenience convenience store scene. So it like comes out of the jumping man's throat and then so he just hard cuts to that and then immediately goes back to the convenience room.
That's how you transition. You go down the man's throat, then when you zoom out, you're coming out of the old man's throat.
Yeah.
2x4!
You come out of a little knot in a piece of 2x4. Yeah, that's okay. I think we've cracked it. Great,
You've done it.
all right. Speaking of things that I don't know, interesting, I guess. Let's go to the double R. We've got this is the scene, I guess, that would have been cut in and around the Meals on Wheels scene.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little bit more of Norma and just the quiet diner. This really struck me as weird because okay, what happens is the diner's empty. Shelley's kind of just playing with some receipts or something and trying to find an excuse to not do the Meals on Wheels with Laura. Norma's just kind of sitting in a booth because there's nothing happening. And then Nadine and Ed come in and they're all happy and chirpy until Nadine sees Norma and then decides that they don't want coffee and they leave. I know Nadine's got some potential mental health problems and stuff, but do you think there was an unreasonable expectation that Norma, the owner of the diner, might be there?
Right, like that's like me going to Trejo's Tacos and being upset that Danny Trejo is there.
Yeah. It'd be like going to Wahlburgers and being upset that Mark Wahlberg was... Although that would probably upset me, to be honest.
Yeah, why didn't you stop 9/11? I mean, you said you could.
Put your money where your mouth is, Wahlberg. Yeah, I said it.
You say it behind the window and then you just immediately run.
Yeah, he could probably kick my ass. Nadine's reaction is weird.
Because it feels like that's a moment for like someone who's just coming to the movie and has never seen the series. Like, no, we need you to understand the relationship between Ed, Norma, and Nadine. Like, come on.
No, I guess I could see it in that context.
But also, when is the double R ever empty? Yes, it's a small town, and this is actually realistic for it. But no, that thing is always packed.
I mean, I'm guessing it must be probably mid-afternoon, maybe. Because, past the lunchtime rush.
Yeah.
It would be after school, I guess, because Laura's doing the Meals on Wheels.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, it's probably 3 o'clock, 3:30, something like that, maybe. Really good acting from Peggy Lipton here as Norma.
Yes.
She's, she sort of acknowledges how quiet it is and how kind of lonely she feels. And after Ed kind of leaves, she's just breaks down and starts crying, and then when he kind of comes in, she does this really great trying not to let Ed see that she's been crying, and does this little smile and says we'll get together later kind of thing, and then just immediately goes back to sobbing when he leaves again. Great bit of acting there.
But also how selfish she is. She's having this little moment while 2 tables back, what's her name, is bleeding out of her nose
Heidi,
like crazy.
Yeah. She's not too fazed by it, because I think she does do her signature little giggle as well, though.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It's still this woman is just bleeding an absurd amount out of her nose, and you're just like, she seems fine.
I noticed Shelley is wearing some great 1980s earrings here. They're really cool.
I don't think she ever wore those in the series. I noticed that too. Like, where did that come from?
Very stylish. Speaking of style, I do not think that Doc Hayward's shirt requires a tie.
It does
you don't wear a tie with a check shirt like that. I'm not the most fashionable guy on the planet, but even I know that's not a great look, even in the late 80s.
Yeah, it just feels like I need to dress up and hey, I put in the effort. Like, no, you're putting in effort to look bad, good sir.
How much Latin do you know, Vinny?
Do
you know what ipso facto means?
I do not.
Because that's what he says when he's doing his magic trick, ipso facto, which struck me as weird. I had to look this up just to get the confirmation of this. But basically, it means because of that fact. So you would say, for instance, I don't know, Oscar is 14 years old. Ipso facto, it's weird to sexualize her like that. It's not... I don't think it's a good equivalent for like an abracadabra type magic word.
It's not.
That was weird. I don't know if there's anything to it.
That he sucks at his job, it just shows that he sucks at his hobby too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he loses the thing that he's trying to conjure out of nowhere or whatever. Yeah, it's a bad magic trick. There's this scene with the muffin, the muffins, and the talk about the muffins and stuff is quite long, and I'm glad that it was cut out of the film.
Yes.
Because it does drag on a bit. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of this stuff? Anything that Donna says or that Doc says or anything like that?
I just kind of thought, like, earlier in the film, just Laura, just acquaint yourself to a turkey, gobble gobble. Then later, no, I'm a muffin. No, you're the muffin. No, like, just her need to metaphor her life into a food.
Speaking of food, what does huckleberry taste like? Do you have any idea? I don't
I assume like the hound.
Huckleberry. What's that song?
Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine.
Now, what's the one with my huckleberry friend? Oh, Moon River. Moon River, wider than a smile. My huckleberry friend. Yeah, I don't think I've ever eaten huckleberry, but apparently they have 7 whole huckleberries in these muffins, which you're not allowed to smoke. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the very next scene, if I was going to put any one of these scenes back into the film, it'd be this one. This is the scene where Laura is standing under the ceiling fan. There's the light. There's the electricity. You can hear Bob saying stuff like, "Do you see what we can do? And I want to taste through your mouth." Which, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's very, very creepy. I love this scene. It's very creepy, especially like just the noise of the electricity that sort of slowly amplifies. You've got that really creepy, slow smile breaking out on Laura's face.
Yeah.
I mean, my read of that is that you can see Bob slowly creeping in to her and taking control. Say it's kind of like the reverse of the scene that we see in the film with Leland, where he is, where you can see that he's really sort of got this kind of fury around him, and then his face kind of slowly drops, and it's like Bob is kind of leaving. Yeah, it's kind of the reverse of that, like he's slowly settling in.
Yeah.
The other great thing that I noticed on this watch was that the ceiling fan whooshing noise, like when Sarah comes in and says Laura and kind of breaks her trance, like that. The soundtrack, you can hear like that ceiling fan noise kind of powering down, like it sort of does this like boo kind of thing, which was really cool. Yeah, whew.
It is blatantly like the one scene that should have been in the film, and I just trying to wrap my head like, what is the reason it wasn't? Because I can't think of any. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, unless it was they just wanted to trim something, I guess. But no, I think it absolutely needed to be in the film, and they could have. It wasn't that long either. Like they could have just left it in there, and it would have been this cool little moment.
And it's not like the thing. Oh, do we have too much creepiness in this movie? Like, no, that would never be an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of other short scenes, and we get a short scene of Mike with no shirt on, removing fire from the circle of candles while he's saying, "Fire, walk with me." Now, he must have had a long match.
Yeah.
Just think about the logistics of how that's shot. He would have had to light those candles while kneeling there shirtless and reciting his lines phonetically backwards. that would have been a real challenge as an actor. I
So
think.
hard.
It would have been pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, I kind of, when I'm lighting birthday cake candles and stuff, like I can never light all of them with one match either.
No.
So it's like must have had a long match or a slow burning match at least. I always
But,
worry
like,
about it.
When I saw this, I was trying to think, like, when do you cut this in? Like, when the heck? And I
Yeah.
thought, like, maybe almost, like, cut it in when he's yelling at Leland and Laura, like, have that interlace over it, like, with static, almost like the Bowie and convenience store scene, because I'm trying to think, when would this go? And I can't think of anywhere this could go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you would have to probably put it before the traffic light intervention scene, but even then it would seem out of place.
Right,
Yeah.
like, why are we
I can
cutting
see
to
where
this?
they cut it. Yeah. Now, do you think Leland reads pornography in his office?
I mean,
When he calls Teresa from, seeing a picture in Flesh World, he's doing that from his office phone, right?
yes. Craig, we live in a world where there's probably so many people watch porn on their office computer. And this is way before that, so yes, I fully believe that a man will look at porn in his office.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. I mean, I can understand you don't want to, be doing that kind of stuff from home, but, did they keep track of that kind of what phone calls people were making? I don't know. Maybe Ben Horn probably didn't care, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you work for Ben Horn. I mean, come on. I'm
Yeah,
sure he
that's true.
erases any logs that don't need to
Yeah.
be publicly found.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of things that need to be found, though, we get the Bernie the Mule scene, which is pretty much our only scenes with the sheriffs
Yeah.
in this film. Yeah, it's a pretty nothing kind of scene. It's just kind of establishing that they're tracking Bernard Renault, who's coming down from Canada. But the one thing I will say about the scene is that it feels, the way it's shot with those slow lingering shots and kind of cutting between people, and it kind of feels like a template that Lynch would pick up again in The Return.
Yes, 100%.
Compare this to maybe the scene in The Return where they're talking about, where Hawk and Andy and Lucy are sort of going through the old files and trying to figure out what's missing. Compare it to that. It's pretty much beat for beat.
But also, what struck me was how just the color of it, like, you could tell it was an overcast day outside just from the gray scale of it, versus, like, the series, there's very warmness to the sheriff station, very, like, warm, like, reddish, about it, orangish, whereas this was just Sheriff Truman sitting in a gray room with just void of color and just having long conversation with no music really as well. Just very just drawn out seriousness of it all.
That's a great point. Yeah, again, just speaking to the whole idea of this being a different Twin Peaks than we're used to in the series.
Even then, the Andy, like, silliness is toned down too. It's just, the only silliness is him being blatantly told what they need to do, but it's not like there's a joke that Andy is dumb or anything. It's just like, just reaffirming what is going on.
So we're getting towards the tail end of these scenes now, which is good. Let's talk about really quickly. I don't have a lot to say about this, about the baby laxative scene. So this is Bobby finds out that the coke he's killed a dude for is actually baby laxative. It's kind of funny how he flips out at this. The one thing that I wondered about this though is when a film crew shoots a scene like this, it must be so annoying to have to reset a shot like that, where you're making a huge mess, or even a scene where, like, somebody, a character jumps into a thing of water and gets all wet, or something like that. It must be so annoying for a film crew to, like, reshoot something like that. And I wonder if it puts additional pressure on actors to do a good take the first time. Because you think about it, it's going to be like, it's not a short process to film anything, really. Especially if you have to clean up, like, a kilogram of powder. You have to vacuum the actor down, maybe change their clothes,
and then
all
change
this kind
the
of stuff.
dirt because there's powder all over the dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
All for it just to get cut.
Yeah, so I wonder if there is pressure on actors to do a good take, or to just to nail it the first time round. If any actors are listening to this and can provide insight, please email us, tp@gmail.com.
If you work with Stanley Kubrick and did 80 takes of nonsense, let us know.
God, I'd love to talk to someone who worked with Stanley Kubrick.
We could get Jack Nicholson on here. Come on, Craig.
Speaking of people who suck, Dr. Jacoby should be fucking whatever the therapist version of being disbarred is. His phone call with Laura is like automatic.
Yep.
Strike him off the fucking record, man. Fuck. So gross. Next up, we have a relaxing evening at the Briggs house. Bobby's chilling out in the basement. Mrs. Briggs is doing some needlepoint. Mr. Briggs is sitting in his favorite easy chair, reading from the Book of Revelation. Just a regular Tuesday night.
Just a regular Tuesday night. But also, I think I don't like that because it feels too on the nose to have someone reading the book, literally reading the Book of Revelations. Like, that is not subtle at all. That is too on point for this series.
I mean, you could expect that in maybe something like Evangelion or something like that.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
That's what Gendo reads every night before bed.
God, that man doesn't sleep.
Nah, probably not. He just snorts a thing of LCL and like, woo! Let's go!
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm just trying to do a segue here. I'm not clever enough to do this segue. We're back at the sheriff's station, though, and Lucy tells Sheriff Truman that Josie is called because she's heard a prowler.
Ooh.
Now, do you think Josie actually heard a prowler?
No.
Or is this some convoluted booty call?
No, she needs some Truman because she's so stressed about being taken to court over 2x4s. She needs some punishment from the right kind of authority.
She needs the long hard something of the law.
She needs some good 2 inches.
Or 1 9/16 or whatever. The only other thing I'll say about this scene is that Lucy's confusion about who she's talking to, or through the intercom, is kind of a precursor to her struggling to understand the concept of cell phones in The Return, is it not?
Yeah, it really was, but also just the confusion with her, and then Andy just running up to scare her accidentally.
Yeah.
It was just like it was very the original series, but also more explains like the out of placeness it is, just because like if this was in the film, it'd be so out of place to have this type of humor.
Yeah, it would probably be the most comedic thing that we see in the film.
Yeah,
because there's nothing really, there's no jokes in Fire Walk with Me, there's no levity really at all. It's all dread and menace, mostly. Much like the scene of Leland arriving home as Laura's about to sneak out before James comes rolling down the street and the world's loudest.
Sneak out.
I quite like this scene in isolation. I think that the pacing of it and the way that not once but a couple of times he kind of like looks directly at where Laura is.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely adds a lot more menace to the thing. If the scene was left intact in the film, I feel like it might have disrupted the flow of that moment a little bit, though. What do you reckon?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I do like it in isolation, but I probably would have kept that cut.
I almost would have liked if they put this cutscene in The Return, just let this play out as the flashback for it.
Oh, that would have been cool. Yeah, after Cooper goes back in time. Yeah, man, and that would have been really cool. It would get more Ray Wise in The Return.
Yeah.
That'll be always good. Speaking of people that had a all too brief of an appearance, if the scene with Laura under the ceiling fan is the one scene we could have put in, if I had to choose a second, it would probably be this brief shot of the log lady.
Yes.
Sobbing as there's a distant scream in the background. I think, I love that. I think it's great.
it's a good way to show how just rattling the death of Laura is, because she is a staple of this town, but also the log lady is a staple of this town, and it's like one moving on without the other.
Indeed. So yeah, I would have kept that in if it were up to me. Then we kind of get some stuff for the people in the audience who wanted to sort of know what happened after season 2, the some months later section. So we got Annie is taken to hospital. She meets a nurse. Now, question for you, Vinny. The nurse steals Annie's ring. Do you think the ring or the red room or whatever compelled the nurse to take that ring? I mean, was there some kind of supernatural attraction there? Or is the nurse just a kleptomaniac?
I think that is also possible that the nurse is a maniac, but also I think there has to be some supernatural elements to make her want that ring. It's so fucking ugly. Because, like, it has to be just the temptation is filled in that ring, because who would wear that? Especially her. She seems like she cares about her appearance if she wants to steal jewelry out of patients, so why would you take something so ugly?
I wonder if there is something to that. Like, I wonder if
that's not my precious sign for this ring.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I wonder if that ring does have some kind of supernatural pull to it, because I mean, pretty much everyone we see with the or in proximity to the ring does either reach out for it or does put it on their finger at some point, or does is playing around with it at some point. So I don't know. Maybe there is.
There is a curse to the ring, and that's why Cooper told Laura not to touch it. Because ultimately, it does feel dumb that he tells her not to touch it, because it does protect Laura. But also, like, maybe he knows that there's just doom. You're just doomed if you get even near it.
Or maybe he knows that the ring does have this kind of temptation associated with it, and that's something that you have to actively try and resist.
Right.
Which he's trying to warn her about, maybe. I don't know. We do see Cooper in the red room again with the man from another place. What does he talk about here? They talk about Annie. He asks kind of where he is. He asks where the ring is, so that's interesting, because the ring is usually on that little table. And the little man is very cryptic with his responses. He says that someone else has it now. And the little man delights in telling Cooper that when he asks where he is, that, you are here, and the only place left to go is home. Mm-hmm. And then absolutely cackles.
Now, Craig, I was trying to think if we could somehow insert this into the season 2 finale. I wonder where you could insert that, because it feels very much like this is not actually after the season 2 finale, but more in the middle of it. And I was trying to wonder where you could fit this into it.
Yeah. It would just have to, it would probably have to be before the doppelganger stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe before the whole Windermere and Bob thing, because that's quite near the end.
Mm-hmm. Could it be right when he walks into, like, the portal in the middle of the woods?
Maybe. Or maybe after the bit where he's seated in the chair and the guy's singing the song about the sycamore trees. Maybe after that.
Yeah.
I mean, and just to sort of extend out the next kind of scene that we get is the season 2, the final scene, kind of an extended version of that almost. We see more of the how's Annie thing. Coop's got a bloodied forehead, and Doc and the sheriff try and break down the bathroom door. And I love that when they do this, he sort of notices and sort of lies on the floor as if he's fallen down.
Yeah.
If this extended scene had been in the series finale, then Twin Peaks would have ended with Cooper saying, "But I haven't brushed my teeth," which is unusual.
It also would have ended on the worst medical advice from a doctor who just saw someone experience head trauma. Oh, you're going back to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like visible bleeding profusely from the head. Yeah, maybe Doc Hayward should be struck off the...
Yeah. Him, just Jacoby, just get rid of all of them. This is why shit keeps going down. You have
there's no...
inexperienced people at your hospital.
Yeah, exactly. The nurses are stealing from people. There's no good healthcare professionals in Twin Peaks. Yeah, if you need healthcare, you have to go to Deer Meadow for it.
I mean, come on. The American healthcare system is better than this, right?
Well, they're not far from Canada. They could just take a trip over the thing and get cheaper medicine.
They have plenty of baby laxative.
Yeah, exactly. Now that you have to have babies. Where would these season 2 scenes, Vinny, or these some months later scenes, if they were put in the film, where would you put them? Is there anywhere logically that you would place these?
It's hard because it's easy just to be like, oh, post-credit, but I think it would help more to be in the actual thing before, people leave at the credits, but I think you could insert it, because I was thinking you can insert it right after Deer Meadows and do a plan like it's not months later, but it like start the movie with months before, and also like this is we know you're here for answers on the finale, and we're kind of giving it to you, but also let's take you back to what this finale was about. And that was about Laura, so let's start the Laura story after showing you this. But I'm not. It's very tricky to add these back in.
Yeah, I feel like I'd almost be tempted to put them right at the start, to be honest, before Deer Meadow. Would maybe be more logical. I don't know.
Or insert this in between Deer Meadow and Philadelphia. That way you can then cut to Cooper being serious and looking at the camera and being like, shit's about to go down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm glad they exist, but I'm glad they're not in the film by the same token. And those are our missing pieces for Twin Peaks. I feel like
everything's answered. We did it.
We did it. Cool. All right, case closed on Twin Peaks. Now, Vincent, there's one more missing piece of something that we've covered before.
Wait, what?
I don't know how common this knowledge is, but there is. At the end of Evangelion, there is quite a prominent deleted scene from that.
Yes, it's an extended hospital scene. Let's go!
I don't know what fan forums you've been surfing, Vinny, but
Craig, the Brazzers community are very nice people.
Vincent, tell us about the live action scene that was cut out of End of Evangelion.
So, before I do this, Craig, let me tell you something. So, ladies and gentlemen, we both watched a copy of this on Vimeo. And let me tell you, I own the very expensive special edition of Evangelion, the complete series collection and with EOE. This is included, but without the option of English subtitles.
Okay.
Why include this if I have zero way of understanding what dialogue is being said?
Well, to be fair, the box set does come with a month trial for Duolingo, so I mean it's kind of on you.
So, I just couldn't believe, because I was like, all right, time to watch this for the podcast and play it. Like, weird. Those I went to settings and subtitles are on. I'll go back to the main menu. Yeah, subtitles are on. Play, still no subtitles. I was in menus for a good 5 minutes trying to get subtitles while watching this on the Blu-ray, and I just had to succumb to the Vimeo copy I sent you.
So what happens in this scene?
So this scene takes place right after instrumentality. It's just we're all one big soup. We're all trying to get along, and then this is when this scene was going to happen. We see a young lady being awoken by an alarm. She wakes up. She's next to a man. She goes, Baka Toji.
So immediately we know which characters these people are supposed to represent.
Yep. So she's like, did I just have a dream? Oh God, did I get drunk and sleep with him again? Ugh, this is all we do. Then we see her getting ready for work. Then we cut to another young woman waking up being like, was that all a dream? And she's wondering about her stress levels and how she shouldn't be complaining about her reality because nothing's going to change. And she gets this call from Ritsuko. So to blatantly say this is Masato being woken up as well and talking to Ritsuko. Like, I just love how blatantly this is directed.
Yeah.
Like, no, we need you to know what is happening because you just saw instrumentality, and now I need to just blatantly tell you what's going on here after the nonsense you just saw.
Yeah.
Craig, what did you feel like when you realize, so these are the characters I'm going to be following in this live action thing?
I mean, well, my first thought was, okay, all right, some interesting choices here. So obviously we've got Oscar and Toji, which, and then, Masato and Ritsuko, and you're like, okay, well... So my first thought was, well, okay, well, does Shinji exist in this world? Does Rei exist in this world? What's happening here? It felt... This whole scene felt very much like the fully animated sequence from episode 26, the alternate slice of life. This is what the show could have been type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, it felt very much like that. Tell me, Vinny, would this scene have appeared in the film as well as all of the other live action stuff that we saw?
I believe it would have been like a splice of the two, where you get the splice of this stuff, but also like that one shot of like the voice actors dressed as their characters in the crowd as well.
Right. Would you have got all the movie theater stuff and all that kind of thing? I wonder if that would have happened as well.
That probably would have been like the opening of this, like, cut from like beautiful Comsessor Todd to just like the shots of the people in the theater, the emptiness, and then cut to wake up from the dream is how I would understand this would have been spliced. Because it does use the same music that is used in the actual movie with the shots of like the street and the cat and the movie theater. So that music is still there in this.
That's right.
But I do like how like the conversation between Ritsuko and Masato, it really turns to the gossip about the neighbors next door.
Yeah. Yeah, these two kids that just fuck all the time, and that was funny.
And then Ritsuko hears it somehow, because I couldn't hear when I was watching. She's like, Masato, are you watching porn?
That's right. And then it sort of ends in a weird way, right? Like, so Oscar's walking down the streets. She sort of hears a voice calling her name, and we're led to believe that this is Shinji, and he sort of says, "I'm not here," and then it just ends.
Yeah.
What? I'm just reading the wiki here. So Hideaki Anno voices that mysterious voice.
That's why I thought I recognized the voice. Like I knew it was Shinji, but I'm like, is that Anno?
Yeah, sounds like the guy from The Wind Rises.
Joseph would love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting little scene. Do you think it would have been out of place in the movie? Like if this was
no, because we got so much weird shit. Like, come on, after Comsessor Todd, you can do anything in that movie.
Yeah. So presumably this would have. I'm just trying to think back to a memory of that film. So if it did all the live action stuff, it would have gone to this or some version of this film. And then it would have gone into, what's the next thing that happens in the film? Is it
when it's
on the beach?
Well, yeah, it's right before that with
before that.
Shinji and Rei. They're naked in the soup.
In the LCL. Yeah. That might work quite well.
Yeah.
Is it Oscar? I'm not here, and then it cuts to Shinji and Rei in the primordial soup. Yeah, that would actually work quite well.
Because it also plays on that he's just watching these other universes play out. Because he's watching, where he's friends with Asuka and the silly, I'm late for school. Like how it's that in the series. And then he's watching this, like almost like sitcom-y, like, fucking new couple next door. I'm trying to make it by myself, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. No, I think it might have worked. I feel like, because this is like, the version that exists now is like 11 minutes long, so it's quite long.
Yes.
I feel like if it was maybe 3 minutes long or something like that, that would have worked probably better.
Now, Craig, let me ask you, what do you think of Anno's live action directing? Because this would have been his first like big official live action stuff, whereas before he would direct like fan films of like Ultraman or various other stuff where it's just him and his friend just shooting shit that they want to make. Whereas this would have been like a studio funding your live action shooting. How do you feel about the direction Anno does in this?
I don't know if there's anything too notable about it, to be honest. Like, I feel like most of his artistic flourishes, come out in animation better. I can't point to anything that's particularly noteworthy about it, to be honest. What about you?
The only thing I just like the shots of just the mundane outside world, because in the anime you get like the swing set shots or just like the sandcastle shots, and so it's like very much just the certain shots, just the focus of like stuff you encounter in your everyday life, because this follows them going to work, and you just get shots of like cars and bikes, and you get one ass shot which is like there's Anno.
There that's one for the otaku. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know, anything else we want to say about this little we better start wrapping this up. Anything else we want to say about this little scene?
Just like, this is the closest we're ever gonna get to Anno directing a live-action Eva adaptation. Well, this and Shin Godzilla.
Yes, we're grateful for that. I like Shin Godzilla more, I think.
Shin Godzilla is the better live-action Eva than the live-action Eva segment.
All right, let's wrap it up there then. We've got a playlist of music that we do before our final plugs. Any songs you want to put on that today, Vinny?
I want to put Pieces by Sum 41.
Okay. I haven't thought about this at all. I will put... fuck it. I'm going to do I'm going to co-opt a Gen Z thing and put on a vaporwave version of Com Sisatod that I found the other day and really enjoy. Yes, I'm going to put that on there. Thanks everyone for listening to our discussion of Twin Peaks and Evangelion: The Missing Pieces. This has been a real fun one, and I think it did come out better the second time, so that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you want to find us online, you can do that. We'd love to hear what you thought of this or any of our other episodes. You can email us directly at tp@gmail.com. You could also look at our Instagram for memes and stupid shit. We are on TP:E podcast on Instagram. And hey, Vinny.
Yes?
I signed us up for Twitter the other day.
What? The very healthy... Website. Oh, I thought it was a very healthy social media out for.
Elon, if you're listening and want to send us some money, first off, pay your fucking taxes and then send us some cash.
He's too busy trying to be SEELE, SEELE Monolith.
He really is. He is.
He honestly is.
Yeah, Elon Lorenz is his full name. No, but we are on Twitter if you want to follow our nonsense there as well. That is... what's our Twitter handle? I think it's TP Evangelion is our Twitter handle there. All these links will be in the show notes. And yeah, we'll talk to you on the next episode, I guess. See you later, I guess.
We promise more fan service.
Oh, stop promising that. You're going to have to deliver on that one day. Alright, see ya.
Anno did it. Bye.